Welcome to the Voice of San Diego, Friday 5, live at 5. My name is Scott Lewis, the CEO, editor-in-chief at Voice of San Diego. It is Friday, April 30th. We got a good show. We're going to go through 5 great stories in a good explanatory fashion like Voice of San Diego does. And then we'll do a little bit of an announcement. Number 1, one of my good buddies in local public affairs, Carl DeMille, was the subject of a little bit of a Voice of San Diego investigation this week. Andy Keats from our shop did a story about Reform California. That's the group that Carl DeMille formed to jump on the opposition to the gas tax, to jump on the opposition to the changes to the property tax system in California, to now it has jumped on the recall movement and has gotten a lot of critics, not necessarily from the left, but from conservatives. Andy Keats gathered a ton of different comments from people who are leading the recall, from other conservative activists across the state who feel like Reform California is good at sort of finding its way to supposedly lead these movements, but then just manages to come out with a lot more money than it starts with at the beginning. And of course, Carl DeMille gets more attention along the way. Now, I am a fan of getting attention too. I know what it's like. It's fun to get attention. But that is the story there. Very interesting story. If you like politics, you like politics stories, I recommend Andy's on this. Now, we got some response in the story from Carl DeMille about all his critics. They had basically 2 responses. One was all those people just wanted some of our money and they didn't get it and they're mad now. That was his first response. The second response after the story went out and started going around to conservative activists and other donors around the state, he sent this tweet, said, "Forget daylight savings time. I get my reminder to change the batteries in my smoke detectors every time Voice of San Diego puts out one of their air-filled false narrative pieces against me. Not real journalists." Well, they have not once pointed out any errors in the piece. That's usually a tell when, somebody's mad about something you've written, but they don't actually say what's wrong with it. But then, there's that. But then on his show, he called us the void of San Diego. I always call my dog Rocky. He's like a void of light. He's just like all light gets lost around him. I don't think he actually has substance. He's just like a black hole. So I guess that's what we're like. We're just like the void of San Diego. Anyway, check out Andy's story if you like politics, if you like stories, if you like reading things that are good. It was great. All right, number 2. Our Sophia Mejias Pasco did a piece this week about the YMCA. They are selling this facility in Escondido, the Palomar family. Why? They are closing other ones. They're not building some things like they planned. This is a wonderful facility in southeastern San Diego. Swimming pool is not coming along though. Obviously, the pandemic had an effect on everybody, but on in particular, the Y took it hard. Lost thousands of employees, lost memberships. Their business model, in many cases, is memberships that help support other community activities and services. Now, look, I'm as entwined with the Y as it gets. Kids get childcare in many cases, camps. We had memberships and have supported it. It's a vital piece of infrastructure. A lot of places in other parts of the country have more community rec centers, more community pools, more community things like this run by the government. The YMCA in many cases here, though, support is that like infrastructure. So great story from Sophia Mejias Pasco about what is going on at the Y. I recommend checking that out. Also, a new CEO is coming in. Now, again, the Y provides a lot of great services, and they stood up some services to help parents get through the pandemic. But it's a crossroads, and so if you care about the Y, you might want to check out where it's at. All right, number 3. We have talked about nothing more on this show than schools and when schools will open, whether they would or not. And I have a declaration for you all. and I know that you all are interested in this declaration. So here's my declaration. Schools will open fully in the fall. There's just too many inputs now that seem to point to that. Unless there's some kind of unforeseen increase or change in the pandemic, we're going back to school full time in the fall. Probably some modification, I'm not sure. But this week, Assemblyman Phil Ting was speaking at the budget hearing in Sacramento about the state's budget, and he made this point.
We want to make sure that schools are going to be open in the fall, and so we're going to make take every precaution to do that. But frankly, if we don't do anything in this year's budget around distance learning, it means that things will go back to normal.
That's what he's referring to. There is a law, basically, that in California, you got to go to school. Schools, you are in trouble if you don't go to schools. It's the basic law. And so what they're saying there is that if nothing changes at the state legislature, that law will be in effect. It was waived last year so that they could provide school in the distance manner that they did. They decided to waive it so that they could do that hybrid or just fully remote school. And now what he's saying is that they're not going to waive that, or if they do waive parts of it, they're, it's all, if they don't do anything right now, schools will be required to fully open in the fall. So very interesting. I think I don't think people have really focused enough on the fact that it's the default that they have to be open and that you have to go to them unless you have some waiver or have another arrangement. And so I think that is something to watch for. I'm going to compile everything I know about what's coming up in the next. I love these people that pop in. Who's this guy, boy? Well, I'm Scott Lewis. Scott Lewis. That's who I am. Talking about local public affairs. Thank you for checking it out. All right, so schools will be back in the fall unless something changes with the virus. Now, there's a couple of competing narratives going on. The numbers look great. Lowest hospitalizations I've seen in months. The case rate is down at 1%. It's looking really good. But as we've talked to experts, I talked to Christian Anderson from Scripps the other day, and he was worried about if we let even that level of case continue, that case rate to continue, there's a bigger chance of variants exploding and taking over. But again, the de facto situation is that we will go back to school in the fall unless they make a change, and they might not do it within about the next month is when they might make any kind of change like that. So stay tuned for the state budget discussions and whether they make any waivers or anything like that. All right, number 4. We had a great week at Voice San Diego. We did the big investigative story. We got the Reform California story. We got the YMCA story. We did a big story about schools and how they're using all of these hundreds of millions of dollars in relief funds that the state and federal government are sending them. And by the way, great story from Ashley McGlone, who did that. And Monday, we released our new season of San Diego 101.
As we learned in 2020, a world without physical classrooms is a tough one for families and educators. But schools have to keep going, pandemic or not. So how do they get the money they need to keep us educated?
In response, protesters have taken to the streets to demand reforms, including greater oversight of law enforcement, which poses an important question. Who should police the police?
The only people who can change the charter, though, are the voters. It's our Constitution. It's the way we set up the city. If you want to change the city, you need to understand the charter.
It's an ongoing and complicated problem, and so far no one has put forward a solution to fix it. So, where does all the sewage come from? And who can stop it?
Those were snippets from the 4 new videos we've released about San Diego 101, breaking down some of the issues we think you should. Now, look, you saw me in there, right? Like, I think that so I suggested we explain what the city charter is because it always comes up like there's big things. This week we did some work about how the city charter, for instance, requires that if the city is going to borrow money, it needs a 2/3 vote of the people, and that was supposed to be taken care of in Measure C. Measure C was going to get a vote of the people to allow the city to borrow a bunch of money so that it could expand the convention center and raise the hotel room tax to pay for it. Well, it came up under 2/3. Now, there are people who say that the tax should still go up because it got more than 50%, and now we legally believe that because their citizens initiative means it should increase. But that doesn't change the 2/3 requirement for the city to borrow the money. And so that's in the city charters. If we want to change that, you have to change the city charter. Anyway, I think they just let me do that one because I'm the boss. And they're just like, well, he suggested we should do the city charter. So he can have the city charter one. But the other ones are really good. The other ones are good. We've done last season we did where do we get our water, what's the difference between the county and the city, a few others that were really great. This one we've got the how do schools get their money, who polices the police, the border sewage issue, and the city charter one. So check that out. Our team worked really hard on that. The product team here, led by Adriana Heldies, did the production, and of course the reporters that provided all that support in there. So great work on that, and I'm very proud of that. So you can check out the links to those in the comments that Meg put up. Now, Meg has done something. We'll talk about it. Number 5. Megan murdered the Friday Five. She did. She did. She just shot it in cold blood today. No, it's true. Look, Megan, she got that Phil Ting clip about schools. Got all these, a lot of these graphics, and gets all these things arranged so we can show cool stuff every week. And we decided that we're probably gonna cut back. We're not do the Friday Five. No, we're not. Probably we're not gonna do the Friday Five anymore. I'm sorry, it's a little painful. I was doing the Friday Five in a much shorter version on NBC before the pandemic, but the pandemic ruined that. And then we tried to redo it here. We're not at Voice of San Diego at home anymore. I'm at the office. Like we're getting fully vaccinated. We're coming back to the office. So we're not going to do the Friday Five anymore. That doesn't mean you'll see less of me. I have not lost any confidence about my ability to present and speak and talk about things. So I will still do that. It didn't appear to take off in this instance, but that ain't going to stop me. So we will do that. All of you out there, though, have been, it's been a lot of fun to interact with you and talk with you. And I just want to reflect, we started doing a lot of at homes. There were those emotional ones when the pandemic started where I was looking into Instagram Live and talking about my feelings and worries and all that as the pandemic was going. And then we morphed into some more produced things like this. And I've really enjoyed it. I've really enjoyed connecting with you all. We're still going to do some cool things. We're talking about doing some interviews, some other explanations of stories and bits and such, so that we can keep track of things with you. And so you won't see less of me, but not in this format necessarily. Happy to take any questions or ideas. Oh, I know. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that, Molly. You guys are great, and it's no reflection on that. I'm also going to be spending a little bit more time on the weekly politics report that I write for Saturdays. We are going to make that a members only product, which means you have to be a member of Voice San Diego. So I should probably give it my best shot to be good and interesting in that. But I have enjoyed interacting with you this whole year, and I want to give a shout out to Megan Wood, who's made it truly a fun and special piece of content. And Adriana Heldies did the graphics and those intros. So, and some of the collaborators that I've been on with, Kim Prather. I remember one time I didn't tell Megan that Kim was going to pop into the live stream, and she did, and it was awesome. So Dr. Kim Prather and others who are out there who've made this show really interesting. I really appreciate it. Again, we'll still have something like this going on, and we will be able to keep these conversations going, because knowing about and talking about civic affairs in San Diego is very important. People need to care and understand these issues so that we can make them better. All right, so Midnight Wolves softball team has their playoff weekend. Wish us luck. I'm gonna make my lineup tonight. We're gonna get everything settled. We're gonna do well. And I hope you all have a good, enriching weekend with your family and friends. It's going to be beautiful out. Have a good weekend and stay tuned for what's next from Voice of San Diego.